A very warm welcome to each of you who's taken the time to join me today. I'm Marleen Wong, Senior Vice Dean at the Suzanne Dworak-Peck School of Social Work at the University of Southern California. USC is very special to me as a graduate of the MSW program and as an administrative dean. Prior to coming to USC, I was a director of mental health, crisis team counseling, and suicide prevention programs for the LA Unified School District. I have a pupil personnel services credential and a long history of working with schools and school districts who have suffered under the weight of having to deal with a crisis. Today, I want to introduce you to psychological first aid for schools. Listen, protect, connect, model, and teach. The main goals of psychological first aid are to help fulfill the mission of education during times of crises. The first of which is to remove the social and emotional barriers to learning. The second is to keep students actively engaged in learning by reducing their fears, the stresses, and worries. The third is to help students find new ways of coping and adapting. PFA is based on the cognitive triangle, for those of you who are familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy. What we think and what we feel greatly impact and influence how we behave. By helping students process their thoughts and feelings in a safe, unpressured, and trusting relationship with an adult, we can help them to recognize how their thoughts and feelings might impact their behavior and the reactions that create barriers. Psychological first aid for schools, listen, protect, connect, model, and teach is an evidence-informed intervention. Over the next few sessions, I'll focus on each of the 5 steps and provide more information and background about the objectives that we want to achieve in this process. Let's start with the first step of psychological first aid. Listen, protect, connect, model, and teach. First step is to listen. In 2001, I edited and co-authored a book called Jane's School Safety Handbook. Jane's is a publishing company located in England and is famous for those of you who are military personnel, Jane's Book of Ships. They also publish other military handbooks. After 9/11, the company board decided that school safety was an integral part of national safety and security. In one chapter, I described desirable qualities for crisis responders in schools. Let me highlight just a few. A good crisis responder has a sense of responsibility beyond routine. That individual can't go into the office and say, "I'm not working with kids because I've got a schedule to keep." The ability to establish rapport very quickly. The ability to listen to difficult feelings and experiences of children. Ability to help students with coping skills. And the ability to work as a team member. A commitment to maintain confidentiality. In order to truly listen, and for the student to feel the healing power of your listening, you must focus on interacting in a way that creates a trusting relationship between you and the student. In both your voice and your behavior, demonstrate that you want to know what the student has to say. Express your interest. Show empathy. Slow down. Pay attention. Try to picture what the student is telling you. Don't interrupt when the student is talking. You don't have the pressure of thinking about what you're going to say next, because what you're doing is, before you ask a question or make a statement, you want to ask with the intent of wanting to understand or know more. You just want the student to know that you're listening and you understand what he or she is saying. Start PFA in the listen step with a non-judgmental statement, an observation, or a question with no criticism or judgment. For example, I've missed seeing you at school. Were you ill or did you have a hard time coming back after the fights at school? Make reference to the specific crisis event that occurred. If the student gives you a too brief an answer, you can ask, can you tell me more about what that was like for you? The first few interchanges may be awkward, especially for adolescents that don't necessarily want to talk. But when the student becomes comfortable with you and establishes that sense of trust, the words will begin to flow, guided by you and the 5 steps of psychological first aid. If the student has a difficult time describing his or her experiences, here are some suggested questions which can encourage a student to share more. Where were you when this crisis happened? What was your first thought? What do you remember about that day? Remember to ask the questions in a way that convey your interest and your empathy. At the end of the listening step, you can say, thank you for sharing what you went through. And then you can move on to the next step, which is protect. Our next session, in fact, will focus on protect. Thank you for joining me. See you next time.